Well, it's 9:10, so I think we'll get started on the Facilities Committee of the Whole meeting. We'll call to order, and the second is approval of the December 12th minutes. Were there any additions or corrections to the December 12th minutes?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Dr. Schaub to approve. Do we have a second? Second by Dave. Assuming a roll call vote, all those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Let's move on to item 3, which is consideration of scope for the May 16th referendum. Dr. Brenner.
Thank you, Dr. Lund. Just before we start, just want to note that board members Joel Larson and Amber Flynn are on the phone, so they're listening into the conversation. With us tonight, we have Kyle Kwame and Tom Wesley, and they've been just stellar to work with throughout this whole pre-referendum process. And we've held weekly meetings, with the exception we paused for a few weeks while Cunningham and Icon worked with the 60-member community committee on what a new Valley Middle School design could look like. And we've resurrected those meetings as of last week. As a matter of fact, last week we went a couple of times. So Kyle and Tom are here to go through some slides and introduce a conceptual drawing. Correct? No?
We're saving.
That's Wednesday, I'm sorry.
That's for the committee.
I'm sorry, I got 2 days ahead of myself. So you will not see a conceptual design tonight, but Kyle and Tom will still talk about some of the other components to the referendum, and then the board will have some conversation about, what the appetite is for what will be on the ballot on May 16th. So Kyle and Tom, thanks for being here.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Brenner, members of the school board. I think this is a new record for the latest starting of a public meeting, so well done. We're looking for records. So I think, can you guys hear me okay? No, yeah, yes, okay, all right. I think if it's okay with you guys, I thought that if we could just quickly recap maybe some of the things that we've done to get to this point, and then I'm hoping for a lot of arguing. So if we all agree, then we have not done our job. So hopefully we're gonna have some good constructive conversation after this and talk through what makes sense for a potential vote, and hopefully have some really great conversation. So just Facilities Committee update. So again, this is a slide that we presented several months back, but just a couple of things I wanted to highlight. So this is when we looked at your renovation and code compliance and capital maintenance costs versus replacement costs. So if you were to just knock every building down in the district and build new, this is your ratio of how much that you would spend on renovating, making it up to code, and maintaining versus cost of new. And you can see here, Valley very clearly, 75%. FEMA's guidelines are 50% or more, and you knock it down and start over. We think as conservative folks, that's more like 60 or 66%. And you can see pretty clearly, again, Valley is well above that. The reason I wanted to show this is because Valley is not the only school that needs things. Every school has some needs. And also, this is a really good tool to just think about, we're doing a vote right now, and you're going to have another vote. This isn't the last vote for some of you board members, for sure. So hopefully, let's just make sure that we're in the mindset of the votes for a lot of districts that we work with become a regular thing. And it's a thing that we don't do every year, but it's a thing that once we go through the motions properly with our community, they support us. And you look at some of the districts, you look at West Fargo and Mandan that have continuously passed votes. Every few years they pass a vote because they're having growth. And we're at a situation now where there's a school that is in desperate need of being replaced. But we will have schools that need to be replaced too. Maybe it's 10 years from now, maybe it's 20 years from now, but this isn't the end of the show. So with that, I just want you guys to keep that in mind, and that hopefully as you go through this, or hopefully as the public goes through this, and we're not done, right? We're just getting started. I feel like, we've been working with you guys for, 6-7 months, a long time, and we're really not even in the meat of it yet. But there's a lot to consider as we move forward, so I just want you guys to just keep that in the back of your mind that, like it or not, this will probably not be your last referendum for some of you folks. So with that, we did have some questions about what are these items. So on the survey, we listed $18 million for secure entrances. We listed a $7 million number for a roofing, basically allowance. And we heard pretty loud and clear that you guys would like to see what that is and what that means. So I'll let Tom talk about those for a second. Yeah.
Yeah, so what we have here is looking at, what does a secure entrance mean? And we have looked at kind of every school, just not in large detail or great detail in the weeds of it. But we know that a lot of particularly the elementary schools are built in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and really the administration within that school is kind of in the heart of the school, and it's not on the peripheral. And so that whole secure entrance process is a little different, and that's kind of evolved over time, and we've done some implementation of the push to talk mechanisms and stuff like that. But really, it's still, I think we could take it one step further and really try to get a secure entrance where if anybody wants to come into the school, there's still a push to talk function, but once they're in the school, they're in the administration area, which they're still under control and don't have direct access to the school. And so generally, there's two options here, and that the one on the left, it really functions the same. You kind of have one single point main entry, and keep in mind this is outside of bus drop off and parent drop off and whatnot. But once the schools are secured for the day, anybody else coming to visit or coming to pick up a child really has to go to this one point of entry, and from there they are either entered into a vestibule. That push to talk feature, the front desk has an ability to either allow them in or not allow them in, but once they're in, they're still contained within the administration area in that front desk. And from there, they can make a determination or decision whether or not they'll have access to the child or have access to the school. And really, the square footage is probably about 1,000 square foot impact to get this implemented. And typically, on the peripheral of these schools, it's whether it's staff lounge area or another larger classroom or something where we can just kind of shift and flip the roles of those rooms, and it'd have a kind of a wash of impact. In some cases, we may have to do a small addition just to create a vestibule entry, and so that option two is about 1,700 square feet, where it may be an expanded upon administration area, depending on the size of the school. But these are generally the same functionality and just square footage of 1,000 to 1,700.
And so for each option, we're going to show you, middle school level, high school level. Sometimes we have a very clear, defined, option that we maybe spent a little bit more time exploring previously. Otherwise, we have some space allocations, so we have kind of a small and a large. And the point being is to protect the district. Should this, go out to bid, should it be approved by voters, you want to make sure that, one, you have the space, and then two, you have the budget to allow for it. So you'll see at the end of this, we're going to tally it all up, and we'll have kind of a bottom of the range and top of the range, knowing that it could be a combination somewhere in between. But at the end of the day, showing, this is probably the bare minimum if you were to create a new secure entry, and then here's something that would give you a little bit more function. That would bring some of your office staff right there or something like that. So if that makes sense between those. So before we move on, any questions? This is just a general allocation for an elementary school.
Just a quick question. So you would get buzzed into that vestibule area on option two. Would you then have to get buzzed in again to get into the front desk area?
So this door would be open, and then this door would be locked, and then this door would be locked. So we've seen it done a couple different ways. Sorry, so sometimes you have your buzz to get in on the outer door, similar to what Discovery has, but then you stand out in the cold. And so sometimes if you're there and you've got your child, so we found that actually you can get into that first vestibule, and then you put your point of control there. It still gives you the same level of control. You're still behind locked doors, but it gets you out of the weather. So they can function very similarly, just we'd like to show that option to get you out of the weather.
Other questions by the board members? Go ahead.
Similarly, looking at like the high school Red River example here, anywhere it's pretty close to the same, around that 2,800 square feet. Obviously, the high school is a lot larger in the front end of the administration and support spaces for the staff. But again, a singular point of entry, vestibule, received by the front desk, make a determination whether or not they want to allow access beyond that point.
And again, this is not a design. This is
Yeah.
just, we're allocating like square footage. It's in the general shape of the space at the front of Red River, right? But, you know, whoever, if this is approved by voters or approved by you guys, this would have to be designed by an architect.
Right. And then, you know, Central High School, when we look at that main entry off of 4th Street, obviously we have the stairs not only outside of the building, but within the building as well, and then the office is elevated. But I think there's some ways that we could address that by either creating, you know, some accessible ramp entries up into that secondary flight, and then from there, we could get up into the office via a new elevator. And so when we look at kind of the costs of addressing security in all the schools, there's going to be some that are very simple to solve, and there's going to be some that are more complicated, for instance, Central High School. So, but I think there's some opportunity there to not only address the accessibility concerns and issues at Central, but also at the same time, we can address the security entries as well.
All right, so those being the options, oh, the middle schools got left out. Okay, well, we actually have pretty detailed solutions to the middle school. That slide must have got deleted, but those are ones that prior to this process ever starting, we had looked at. So the costs are in there, but I don't have the nice picture to show you. I apologize for that. We do have that, actually, that's pretty well designed out. So just to show you, again, elementary school, so this is our kind of the low option, or I would say the low end of the budget. So you can see here, low end with Central, low end with the elementaries, and you're looking at around $7 million. And then if you go to the higher one, again, we're associating larger square footages for Central, larger square footages for the elementary, and still really healthy contingencies. You can see we have a large bucket of kind of dollars that's not accounted for, and that stems from what issues are we going to run into. If you look at Central, there's lots and lots and lots of unknowns and what that solution looks like. And then we want to have as many dollars as we can reasonably to accommodate some strategic renovations. So as we're pulling all of our, elementary offices, they're centrally located. Can those become, special education rooms or intervention rooms or, breakout spaces? Some of those spaces won't need much work, but some will. So with that, and then also just the general, construction climate, we feel like it's much better to be kind of have a good cushion so that you can do the strategic renovations as we go through and do proper design and proper programming. But the most important thing was that if you brought $18 million to the public and said, I will deliver you a secure entry for every school, you could do it. And for us, so that's job number one, is just ensuring that happens. And then if there's anything left to do renovations to improve, programmatic delivery, then great. But theoretically, you could just do nothing to those offices and the schools would 100% find a use for them. So with that, we'll pause.
So my concern about Central is, it's a special school
Yep.
because it's historic. So I don't remember, what do you have for the budget for just that?
So this is a few $100,000. We have over $500 a square foot allocated to Central. And then this other option over here is quite a bit more. I want to say it's right around $1 million. But again, that's, a very small addition with an elevator and stairs. I think we're allocating over $550 per square foot for that space. So it's a huge amount because we know that it's going to be very tricky.
Cynthia, are you worried because it's a historic building about, messing with it like we had issues with the windows when we did Central? Is that what you're concerned about?
Yeah, I'm, keeping it historically aligned and meeting all those demands. With the world of technology, it's a harder building to do because of that.
For sure.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah, and we've worked with historic buildings. We're working on UND campus. We've worked with, the hospital on the north end of town, doing that project, a huge, huge rehab for that project. So we're very familiar with that process. And not that this is not our project. This is just us showing you an allocation of square footage.
And you're looking at 12 million, and these are, a rough estimate. I know it's
Yes.
very rough. Why would we think to ask for 18 million from the general public if we could do it for 12, 6, even with a 10% increase or so? We could, to keep that bond referendum as low as we can
Sure.
and get everything done.
That's a great point. The issue is just the unknowns. By doing a space allocation for 9 elementary schools, we just, even with the contingency, which that's a healthy contingency that, we had got advice from a construction manager on what makes sense. There's just so many unknowns. And then there's the desire of maybe there needs to be some renovation inside. So this way we have enough room, and to change the amount, that's completely at the discretion of the board. But it's just providing some additional, what ifs.
Yeah, and if we're gonna kind of move the administration off to the peripheral, what happens to that space, right? Is there some renovation that occurs there? Does that use change to library or technology or STEM room, other things that could come into play? And in addition to that, is security throughout the building, right? Are you guys looking to implement cameras throughout common areas that need some technology upgrades? Some of those things as well. So we wanted to make sure there's, some of those things could still get covered with the additional expenses.
Just a question.
Does your numbers
Oh, go ahead, Bill.
include changing locks, changing the key system, upgrading, I know we've been told our key system is outdated, our fob system is outdated, and our larger schools have limited cameras in some areas?
So these are general construction costs. These aren't implementing new security systems in the schools. Yeah.
My only concern about if we cut it too close is all of a sudden we get to the end and we can only do 7 buildings instead of 9, and I don't want to be on the board when I have to make decisions like that. I noticed Twining isn't on here. Is there no plans for Twining at all because it's already on a military base, or?
That was outside our scope.
Fair enough, thank you.
Yeah, we'll gladly look at that. I think, that's a good question, but that was outside our scope.
So, I know it's dark. So my concern is, it's a little bit, I feel like we're almost talking about what schools to keep, what schools not to keep, in a way. I know it's just security, but if I look at some of these elementary schools, they're not in great shape, right? Well, I think you said that. You didn't
There's
say it
different
that way. You
levels.
said there's work to be done, okay? So I don't want to do a recital of everything that we've learned about those schools. But there is a lot of work to be done. And so if we're just going to start doing safety and security on the schools that are not in the best shape, what does that do for the school? It gives a great front entrance, but we still might have mice coming through the building. We still might have poor ventilation. You know what I'm saying? So it's a worry for me.
Absolutely. What we have seen across the nation, unfortunately, is that there's just a huge emphasis on security. So if you look at an investment of $800,000, $750,000, even if you're going to demolish that school in 10 years, that, we would argue that that's probably still money well spent.
There's a lot that could happen in 10 years,
Yeah.
from not having proper secure entrances and other components.
And the goal of doing this now, so at some point, you're going to have to address it. Whether you like it or not, you're going to have to start probably chipping away at secure entrances. So what we're saying now is the public has a huge level of support for this. It's never going to be cheaper than now. It's going to be more expensive tomorrow, and it was less expensive yesterday. So rather than putting it off, you could do it now and take care of it. You're still going to have your facility issues no matter what. So it's either you have the facility issues and at least security isn't a thing that you have to concern yourself with, or you have it all. Because I imagine at some point, maybe it's in 10 years, but there will be even more of a public outcry for security. And I think if you look at the survey, which we'll look at later, I mean, the survey says that the secure entrances were supported way more than Valley was.
Kyle or Tom, are you guys up to speed on all the other monies that we're spending on all the other things, the ESSER and all that stuff? So you kind of know where we're putting our various dollars here and there for some of this other stuff, air conditioning, HVAC, stuff like that?
We've discussed that there isn't any overlap here. I think we can't speak to every detail because I think there's still things that are works in progress, right? But the concern is that there's no overlap, and that's true.
Well, my point is that, it isn't just this and a new Valley School. There are lots of other things that we are doing as a district to help with HVAC and some of those other things that I think Cynthia rightly points out.
Yep, absolutely. And we did have that in the survey, what you guys are currently doing
Yep.
with your building mills. And we had that outlined, I believe it was like the third page of the survey, which we can pull up if we need to.
Jeff, did you have a question or a comment? No, okay.
So I'm gonna go to Wilder. So Wilder, you can have a secure entrance there, but you have a portable that the kids have to go outside to go to they go to the portable, they have to go outside to go to the bathroom. To do that, they have to go into the school. I've been up and I've been moving in office all day long, so I'm not gonna be as articulate. But I think you know what I mean. So how do you secure that? The secure entrance doesn't help with that. And so that's a school that I have concerns about because it's hard to secure portables.
Yeah, I would imagine that the portables are locked during classroom, with a teacher in there and they're locked and secured. I would expect or anticipate that the teacher or an aide would escort the child to the bathroom during that process. But I don't know, like, all the policies and procedures, but still the relocatables are secured. If anyone were to need to get there, they would still, they'd be secured, or they'd have to go through the office to get access to them. But I think that is a much larger picture of Wilder, right, in terms of, and that's something that we weren't asked to address right now in terms of scope of, well, we need to get rid of the relocatables in all the schools and make it all within the same roof footprint to make it secure. I mean, there's still a large occupancy within the school that could have an increased secure entrance system in place outside of the relocatables, so.
Yeah, it's not a perfect solution. We're not trying to say that it is. We're just saying that it would be better. It would be better than what you have now. And part of the other survey questions that we have replacement of a North End Elementary School that barely had support. We wouldn't take that to a vote right now. And then you also had another question that we asked strategically adding classrooms to other elementary schools. And same thing there. It didn't have a ton of support because I think that there's not enough information and data behind it. It's not something that you can wrap your mind around. But kind of the point is to put the feelers out there, to get the public thinking, okay, in 5 years, they might come asking for an elementary school or another middle school or some classrooms or whatever. So the thought is that I'm getting all the information. I trust that they're going to do what I tell them to do or what they say they're going to do. And then when they ask again, it's an easier ask. And every vote will get easier and easier. The last vote we did in Hillsborough, I mean, I don't know that I went to a meeting. They did it because they're just so used to it. So you'll get to a point where hopefully the communication will be so constant and they'll know what you're going to do, trust what you say, and be able to just move forward. But you just got to get there. And it's just been so long since this community's had a positive vote.
Yeah. And
I think, Phil, you have a question?
good.
Well, I just would agree with Eric that, Cynthia, I think we're handling the interiors of all of our schools through the HVAC systems that we are going to be putting in through the lighting systems. I mean, we're putting in $17-18 million over the next couple of years. I think the other thing to look at is if we get to the point where we aren't secure with the relocatables, then we look at a referendum for additions on those, and Viking's another school. We can't just say Wilder's the only one with relocatables. Viking also has those, but they are, as secure as you can make them in that setting, on that. But I think this meeting tonight is to figure out what we're going to do May 16th. What are we going to include in that? And I think the safety and security has been, pushed out there with 80% of the people, I think, are in favor of us doing a large project through the area. I think we have to decide how much can we cover that large area to go on with, to add on to the Valley and the child nutrition component to this whole thing, so we have a number that we can put our hat on and move forward and then start selling our story, because we got to do a much better job this time selling our story and stay away from as much negativity as we can towards this project.
And absolutely, that's, our job is to help inform. Bill, we're gonna not sell, we're gonna inform, because we're gonna stay out of trouble. You can do whatever you want on your private time.
Yep.
So providing all the facts and all the information, and make sure that everyone, if there's a question, and I'm gonna challenge Dr. Brenner a little later on how he's gonna play a part in that, in helping that we get everything answered. So I guess, can we put a pin in this one and we'll go on to the next piece, if that's okay, and we'll come back? All right, are you guys terrified? Oh, I don't know what happened with the format of the PowerPoint. Okay, well, sorry for that. So this is your roof repair schedule, right? So each one of those line items, and we'll zoom in a second. This is supposed to kind of terrify you a little bit. That's the point. So if you see this first block, so this is not a thing that is, instantly attractive to people, but this is a thing that you guys have to deal with as board members. So you have this much repair inventory with your roofing throughout the district. So if you looked here, I broke it off into chunks. Here's 7 million. That's what 7 million gets you approximately. Here's another 7 million. And then each one of these different colors is $1 million to $1.5 million. So the purpose of that being that if you were to go to a vote and ask for 7 million, that's the chunk that you bite off, which is approximately 3 years of needs. Then you'd bite off another chunk if you so chose in 5 years. And so this is supposed to be 23 here and then 28 here. And then right here is stating that, okay, in about 10 years, you're going to get to a point where your building levy will have some funds available. You're not going to be paying for discovery or fine arts. And could you then start tackling one at a time these different components? And I think, I think this is Red River or Central. I mean, you can see that it's going to be 4 years just at that one high school. So let's zoom in, let you see for just a second. So again, 7 years, or the first 7 million, if this were to go to a vote and approved, and this is the schools that would be impacted by that. And then next 7. Oh, I don't have the other one. So
Do you have a standard inflation thing? Because 2028 is a ways off. Is there a certain percent that you do per year or something?
Yep, because these were drawn out over, several years, there was an inflation factor applied to those estimated costs to replace those roofs and repair them.
I have a question, gentlemen. If we're voting on the referendum to replace Valley, why is Valley on the roof
Yeah.
repair schedule?
I think that was a typo, because if you see
It's
here,
not.
Valley and West these are the two that are
Yeah.
crossed out. So I think it was just a typo or something.
Yeah.
I'm
I
sorry for
I
that.
can't really read that from my seat. I guess
Yeah,
I'll
no,
take
yeah,
that.
yeah. We'll provide you with the
Yeah.
micro,
Yeah,
what
it's
is it?
it's a spreadsheet
Yeah.
that it was provided by the district, and that
Yep.
was scrubbed, or not scrubbed, but it was projected out on what was the most critical needs of each school, and kind of when could those things, or when should those things kind of be addressed. And so we took that and worked off of that, and kind of came up with, these chunks of dollars, so.
So it's not for sure that you don't have to do these things. This is just an illustration to show, what the total need is. And you couldn't, even if you had the funds, you wouldn't want to replace it all right now, because then in 25 years, you'd be back in the same boat.
Yeah, exactly.
So having a staggered replacement plan is the way to go. So again, we don't need to make the decision right this second, but I did want to illustrate, I've been going back and forth personally, but at the end of the day, this actually even had more support than secure entrances did. I know it doesn't make sense, but I'll show you in a second.
I'll bring this up before Bill does, because it's the elephant in the room that we have to talk about. Bill has commented publicly, and I agree with him that I worry a little bit about the total. Not whether we do 1, 2, 3, or 4. I worry about a little bit about the total and the number of people that are on fixed income, retired, or things like that. So I don't have an answer for that. That's one of the things I have to factor in my mind as we go through this.
We're worried about that as well.
Yeah.
Bill?
I guess my other worry is with the 7 million, we just passed a referendum for 10 mills for maintenance. And in my mind, I see this as maintenance. And I think that could add negativity to our referendum. And I think we need to stay away from as much of any, we've seen what negativity had to do with 2 elementary schools being taken down into our last referendum. And I think we can figure out a plan on our own with our existing building funds and that to take care of any issues that we have in the near future and then look down the road at a bigger picture if we have to. But I just think that people we asked for that 10 mills for maintenance moving forward, and I consider this maintenance.
I guess I wouldn't disagree at all. We just, as we went through all of the data for the district, the hundreds of lines of Excel spreadsheets, this is just an item that popped up to us that we're trying to find a solution. You don't necessarily have to take it, but we're just trying to say that this is something that made sense. And we discussed heavily on whether or not to include this in the survey. And at the end of the day, the survey's a free, check. And so that's the only reason it was on there. We kind of insisted. And again, we're not hired for this project. But as I look, as a community member, what you're using the funds for, we detailed that in the survey, all the things that you guys are doing, the HVAC and the mechanical upgrades for every building that needs it. You guys are doing a lot, but is there a solution that takes care of it without trying to figure it out? I have no doubt that you can figure it out, but this is just a way that you don't have to say that you're going to figure it out.
And I think the point is well taken by all of us that whether this is in the referendum or not, this is real issues that are going to have to be dealt with, and it's just a matter of when. If we decide not to, it's gonna at some point it's gonna have to be dealt with.
Yeah, I mean, there's just as much as we worry about what is feasible to pass, and the other question is to worry about how to get all the things done that you need to get done without the available funds, right?
It's tricky. All right, we're not done talking about it, but we can move on. All right, so just a really quick, did I mess with it? I did. There we go. So we're going to quickly go over the survey, just some high points. The survey was closed right after Thanksgiving. Again, we had 1,210 respondents. I know that some folks, including, everyone at Icon, we're a little disappointed. We sent out 20,000 postcards, something like that, right? And we would have liked to have seen more responses. Our only, item that made us feel better is that through all of our different surveys that we've done and the different companies that we use, they both the 2 companies that we use a lot have both said that once you kind of get to that 400 resident mark, the needle doesn't move a ton. So once you get to 400, that tends to be the critical mass where you've established enough to get a good gauge of the community. But the important thing is what we do with that number. So again, if they have anything to do with the school, their vote effectively counts for 30%, as opposed to someone that says, I'm not affiliated with the school. That's how your voters are going to show up at the polls. So we want to make sure that the data is representative of that. So again, satisfied with the school district. So you can see here, the public at large, 71%, 58%. That's just a good temperature check for you guys. That's the people that have nothing to do with the school, aren't affiliated. It's good to know. There is some familiarity with our process. I would say actually some pretty good. There's only, 12% of the comparison group or 13% of your whole community that has no idea that you've got some challenges. So for better or for worse, people know. So I don't think there's any point hiding from anything. Let's communicate and get it all out there. Again, strongly support taking action now for Valley Middle School. I'd say overwhelming support, right? Even 73% of your people that aren't affiliated with the school. So here's where we have our first instance of the weighted. So the weighted is where we do that. The affiliated count for 70%, the affiliated count for 30%, the non-affiliated count for 70. So here's where we asked for renovations. It cost less, but was not supported as much. So again, people are reading the questions. They're not just picking the cheapest option and saying, yeah, I want that. So then you can see here, now we're talking about replacing. So we've got the $55 million number. That's still a number that we're comfortable with. We've had discussions on it. There's lots and lots of work that still has to happen with design, but that's not something that we're not coming back and saying it's 65 million now. We had some give in there, and we can have some more discussions, but it's not something that we're drastically trying to shift. You can see again, so 66% of our weighted. So 66% of your community, as we suspect the polls will show, will support it. 60% is what we need, right? So if we were 61, I'd be very nervous, but 66 is a good margin. So again, now we say, tackling security now. There's no dollars, but just, do you want us to do it? 85% said do something. And actually, the 85% said do something now. And then we added $1 to it, and you can see 14% of the public doesn't want to pay for it, but still 71% says do it now. Do it now, and yes, thank you, I'll pay for that. And then, crazy enough, roofing actually has more support. So 72%. So again, $7 million, we talk about it, we say here, you're gonna have to come again. In the next 7 to 10 years, we're gonna need an additional 7. So folks knew this is an added amount to a capital referendum in the spring of '23, and it doesn't solve the problem, it's just the first step. And again, 1% more support than security. 71, 72, and then 66. So maybe I'll take a pause. I think that's the last thing I had there. I had some other stuff about the value of a mill, but let's just talk about, sorry. Let's build a South End Elementary School. We do not have support for that. Let's build a North End Elementary School. We actually don't really have support for that either. And then adding classrooms, strategically, barely. I'd say we don't really have support. Now, these are just ideas that we dropped on people. No background, no solution. We're just dropping ideas. And there's a general support, but not enough to go to a vote. So the point of this was we want to prepare our public. There's going to be votes in the future. We want to prepare our public for larger votes, and these are the items that we're potentially going to need. And with the proper amount of communication and work, I don't see a problem passing these in the future. But what's really important is that people did not say yes to everything. All right, now I'll pause.
Does anybody have questions about the data that Kyle and Tom presented?
I have a question, gentlemen. So as I look at these, I like, obviously the numbers are good, but at any point in the survey, was there a slide that said, if you vote yes on the referendum, it's $79.47 on $100,000 of assessed residential property value, plus if you vote yes on replacing plus security plus roofing? Was that ever, like that amount was never shown to an individual so that they would know that it's $100 on a $100,000 property or whatever? Like we don't have, would that be a part of the information we would be presenting to people?
Yeah, whatever is decided is something that we need to present, and you hit it on the head. We did not go through and add the items up as we went through. but we just said it would be an added amount to the capital referendum question in spring of '23. But we didn't, and that is something that you're not the first person to mention it, right? So if it's $79 for the middle school, and now I'm looking for 23, so now we're at $102, we never said 102.
That was my question. Thank you.
Other questions about the data that was presented? If not, what would you like to do next, Kyle? Just
So
general
we-
conversation?
Yeah, so we have the tax impact. I think this is the old number, so it'll drop down a little bit, right? Brandon, does this seem, I don't know if this should be accurate, but I don't know if it should be last year's number. So it'll be less now. But basically, we're saying for every $1 million that you levy, it's $1.30 for residential. So we have this on here so that we can
Based
have
on
the
100,000,
conversation.
based
Yeah,
on
based on
100,000.
100,000. So if you want to say, okay, let's do the quick math of what's 70 or 60 or 50 or whatever, just so that we can talk through this. So the important thing, I guess, is that no matter what, if we could give one recommendation, is that there's only one question. If you have more than one question, you're dividing your public. It's you know, and we'd take the secure entries only if it meant it was only one question. You know, we also fully understand that the bigger this project is, the more risk that there is then on the project, and the less likelihood that we get paid. So for us, the cheaper or the less expensive the project, the better the odds are that we eventually get a paycheck. But at the end of the day, it's not about us, it's about what's right and what you guys want to do, and that's why we asked all these questions.
So you're suggesting we do an all or none approach?
I
I mean, not having three questions.
Correct.
Not having a new middle school, a new nutrition and safety and security. Whatever we decide to put in the referendum, you'd put it in to one vote, so it's basically an all or none.
all or none of whatever you choose, and the dollar amounts that you choose, and the scope, and
Do you review the central, or the moving the kitchen? How much is that?
that's 6 million is what we have allocated for that, yep. And that's, based on our study, it's four-ish million on construction and approximately 2 million
Equipment.
on equipment budget.
And what happens if we don't do the kitchen?
You'd have to incorporate it into the new design of the new valley, which has, that comes with some of the contention just on what's happening now on that site, is that a lot of the tractor trailer traffic and the logistics of backing that large equipment in and out on those residential streets that are already narrowly restricted. And so if it has to continue to reside there, I don't know that it would get much support if it was not a part of getting relocated.
Yeah, of all the comments that we've heard, and even the comments on the survey where people filled it in, there was not any pushback really on the central kitchen, other than some people just saying what's happening there, which we're absolutely going to have to communicate that.
Bill?
Thank you. I guess, I'll start it. I think the one thing that I think we all agree with is Valley and the kitchen are our number one item. I think that's the thing that's got to go, and I argued a little, I didn't argue, I discussed a little bit the last time with the committee on here of safety and security. Do we add that? Do we wait on that? I'm okay with adding that. I think the support is here to put safety and security in. I don't know if I want the level of 18 million. I think I want it. I'll tell you what my logic is here, if it comes out logically. I think the roofing needs to come out another way as a maintenance item. And what I'm thinking here and Josh, check my math. If we went with the 61 mills for Valley and the kitchen, 15 mills for the safety and security, now we're at 76 mills, and if your math is right, we're under $100 on a $100,000 home. And I think even if it's 105 versus 98, the 98 sounds 10 times better than 101, 2 or 103. That's where I think you don't move forward. And I think visiting a little bit with Brandon, I hate to put him on the spot, but our building fund is in pretty good shape. And we have some mills freed up later, so we could still do the roofing project in smaller pieces and still take care of the buildings that need to get taken care of with that maintenance money. And once we free up down the road, I probably won't be on the board because it'll be 4 or 5, I think about 4 years. Brandon, we free up more mills in about 4 years. You could use those mills to float a larger bond, do a lot more roofing on this. So I like the idea of keeping our costs on a $100,000 home under $100. And now I'll be.
You were talking about 55 mills and 6 mills. You meant millions, right?
Oh, yeah.
I just wanted to make sure everybody's, in fact, in 4 or 5 years, you're the only one that's going to be on the board, left of the 9 of us. I don't disagree with Bill's argument at all either, although I can tell you, I have panic attacks every time there's a school shooting or a bar shooting or anything like that, and I don't see guns going away in the U.S. in the next 5, 10 years. So I do think there's some urgency in that as well, whether it's a $15 million urgency or a $17 million urgency or a $13 million urgency. I don't know the answers to that, to be honest. I agree with Bill that I think the roof maintenance, I think we can get along with what we're doing, but and you have pointed out, we're going to be back in 5 years, and whether that's for more roofs or extra security or more cameras or we need an addition to Discovery because we're maxed out or whatever, we're going to be going back to the public. And it doesn't always have to be a plain, simple one kind of thing. We could have more security, more roofing on a future one. So I in saying it long, I should have said it short. I agree with you. I worry a little bit about, I think we should put as much as we can in security. Other thoughts?
So Bill, just to chime in, I cannot argue with that logic. I completely agree. I think that has there's definitely a mental thing just to keeping it under. So the one other thing is that we are using year-old data. So the mills or the tax impact is approximately 4.7%, 4.5% lower than what we're showing you right now. Just to, I don't have that exact number, but so the tax impact that we're showing you is last year's number as opposed to the number that was approved in October. So we already had the survey out. So everyone's tax impact has effectively gone down by about 4.7% because the value of a mill has gone up. So just to keep that in the back of your mind.
Thoughts other people have? Board, administration? Go ahead, Dave.
Just a couple things that I mentioned last week in committee that I think bear repeating here. First of all, I'll say the most important thing first. I can be swayed on the roofs either way. However the board decides to go, I can see merit in both. But I'm 100% certain that the Valley referendum, the kitchen and safety and security should all be on the ballot. And the reason I say that is both because it's the right thing to do to protect students, and also because the public have told us that this is what they want us to do. And I don't know how I can go out in public and answer the question, why isn't this on the ballot? Why aren't you allowing us to have a say in how we spend our tax dollars? I think it would be a mistake to leave it off. And I also, to the point about keeping it as one question and one number, whatever is decided, if you want to think about this as, are we doing A plus B or A plus B plus C? it's also favorable to have it as one question because there is more support for safety and security. So that's going to lend more support to the school than if it were not on the ballot. So I think for all of those points, mark me clearly in the side of safety and security being on the ballot and a part of the question.
If we do include the safety and security, was it the 7 million option or the 12 million option? Or is that to be decided yet?
17 million. No. 18 million. It's going up as we talk.
Yeah, just because of the unknowns, whether things were gonna be needed, who knows what would happen, and that'd be something that we would just hate to not deliver on, but as Bill had said, there's still plenty of opportunity to have that conversation.
Sorry, I was trying to do math over here, and I can't do it in my head like you can. I have to write it down. So.
No, I wanted to offer just a couple thoughts too. Safety and security, we talked a lot about the moving of the central administration within buildings to the periphery. There's also been, as Bill mentioned, a lot of conversations internally. And we're still, we're welcoming Brian Robbins, our new safety and security manager with a lot of experience, to really kind of bring together a lot of different concepts. We sat down, Brian and myself, with Eric in the booth there and technology folks too, and said, what could door access look like? All the badges that we should be wearing when we're in the building could incorporate with the door access, could incorporate even with printer technologies, et cetera. There's a lot of opportunities there. Safety and security as it relates to cameras, as it relates to cybersecurity, even as probably one of the bigger vulnerabilities would be certain amount of training for not propping doors, or when a door does get propped, does that camera then see that, and then we can have an SRO check that out. So there is a lot more to safety and security, and I think the question that's contemplated, one big component is what was discussed today, but with a little room, and maybe we want to have all that fleshed out before a question on a referendum, or maybe we want to leave ourselves some room to really address that question. But I just wanted to let you know too, there's no shortage of concepts on how we can take safety and security seriously across the district. And the other point I just wanted to offer, just a little bit of a overview of the building fund as it currently stands. So we do have a couple of different liabilities on that building fund. And while we were only at 10 mills going into that building fund, that left us fully subscribed from a building fund just to service the debt. And that has been critical for the district in a negative way, because as things have come up for projects, we've had to rob from the general fund. Now, since the voters had approved from 10 mills to 20 mills in the building fund, for the first time, we're actually seeing revenues in excess of those expenses that we've been subscribed on. So yes, we're looking for some of those debt liabilities to fall off soon. There's even some opportunity now that's showing up here. And as Kyle mentioned, as the property values are increasing, we're seeing that building fund come in a little more strongly than anticipated. And so the bonds we're carrying, the first will begin to come off with some of the performing arts centers in 2028. And then, but it's a modest amount. It's an annual payment of just $300,000, whereas when we get to 2033, where some of the debt associated with Discovery will come off, then that will be even more so. All told, I'll leave you with this high-level picture, is that our annual debt burden on the expenditures out of the building fund, consider that to be $2.8 million, whereas our revenue is about $5.3 million. So that'll leave us annually with $2.5 million to consider projects. Could that all be used to address roofs? Sure. That's not our only project we have to keep in mind, of course. And of course, we can always finance forward some of those dollars if we need to address a pool or whatever projects we're talking about. I did want to give you that high level that each year it's currently looking at revenue over expenditure of 2.5 million, which is a great place to be in. And I know this board and administration's worked hard to get to that place where we can actually have this decision.
Do you want to talk?
Sure.
Go for it.
Unless there's a board member who wants to go.
Go ahead.
Brandon, just as we talked earlier today, I just want to make sure the board is totally clear that in the debt payments that we have, that includes the 1 million that we bonded off the 10 mills, correct?
Correct. That would take care of the $17 million we've invested into air quality. All of that is included. No future projects, of course.
This is a question for all you math people in the room. So if we bonded 78 million, would the tax burden be $101.40 for every 100,000? Am I doing my math correct? Bill, does that sound?
Well, what I figured, if we went 61 and 18, it was 102.92. $102.92 on 100,000. That's why I thought if we could reduce that one down and get it under $100, it just sounds less. I mean, it's only $2, or $4, but it still sounds less. And then we can always sell the public that we're using your 10 mills on maintenance to take care of our roofs, even though 70% said throw it in there. But we're not sure if those 75% said throw it in with Valley and not safety, or throw it in with just safety and not Valley. You know, we don't know if they knew it was keep building. So I like the idea of keeping it under $100. I just like that.
We would educate the public.
Easier said than done.
Thank you, Dr. Lund. You're going to be on my team on this one.
So, yeah, if we took $1.30 annually for 100,000 at 78 million, it'd be 101.4.
Yeah, but that's prior to, that's 2021
Right.
numbers.
But I'm talking, that's just, that would be providing a new middle school, a new nutritional kitchen, and then the safety and security at 17 million.
I think to Kyle's point, we might run all these numbers, the new valuation comes in, and we're under even further.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's perhaps something that our consultants could
Right.
verify exact to the penny for
Correct.
the next meeting.
Right.
How about the other way? So we keep talking about 55 million is going to get us a full middle school. With all the inflation that's gone on in the last 2 years, you guys are still comfortable that 55 million and 6 million and 17 million are the right numbers? They haven't, I mean, I'm thinking of the Career Impact Academy, you know, and for what we've got, we're going to get, 2/3 of a building if we don't get more money or something like that. So, but we're still comfortable that these numbers will get the building the way we want it.
So we ran through the numbers on Tuesday of last week, and instead of 55, we're at 57, but we haven't done design yet. There's so many decisions. So in our minds, you know, that includes a furniture budget, that includes, you know, so for us, we'd rather say, you know, let's design to 55, and not let's just design and then see where the budget comes, you know.
I agree. You just don't want to build a new house and then find out, well, we ran out of money, so you don't have a kitchen. You'll have to go to Applebee's every night or something, so.
We're very concerned about that as well, and if we had the opportunity to say, all right, well, we know we have 17 million for security, and we only need 13, and then we're going to spend a couple million on new security systems, and then there's still a little bit of contingency funds that could be used strategically. I think that could be wise, just depending on who knows what the needs could be a year and a half from now.
What are your thoughts about Bill's comments? I mean, I look at it from a retail standpoint. I mean, there's a reason that jeans cost $49.98 and not $51. So, I mean, psychologically, you know, you guys are in this game. We're not. What are your thoughts about trying to keep it below a certain dollar amount?
I think that outside of that, you know, magic $100 number, I would say it wouldn't matter at all. But then when you think about it, absolutely, that's powerful to say $99, $98. It's just a risk, you know, is 98 that powerful when 105 gets you the roofs? You know, that's the difference, you know, it's $9 so it's really like probably $8 a year.
It'd be nice to know what the new evaluation would get us, because we might be below, we might be below that number with the new evaluation. Dr. Brenner?
Here's what I'm thinking. We get 3 swings at this conversation, tonight being swing number 1, Thursday night, Finance Committee, and then back here next Monday night for the full facility, full board to have a conversation. I think what I would recommend at this point is we look at a range that the board would be comfortable kicking over to Finance. Then Brandon's got some time to slide those numbers in and out and see what the impact is. We would probably have a better idea as we're talking about the true value of a mill, you know, if that's still $1.30 or not. And then we could really have some numbers to work through with Finance on Thursday, and then Finance could bring that recommendation back to the full board. Just another comment, and this goes to what Bill is talking about. When we add 61 and 18 and 7, that totals 86. 86 was a total a couple of years ago. So symbolically, that has a little fear for me. But as I said in our ICON board member leadership group, I still want to follow the science. And the science to me is a survey result. So I'm a little conflicted, but I think if we look at a range and study what that range would be, I think we can come back and hammer that out Thursday night and then really flesh it out next Monday.
The other thing that's different is that same dollar amount was attached to a K-8 school, which was a totally different concept for the public. I'd like to ask, Joel, did you have any questions, thoughts, comments, exposés? Thank you. Amber, thoughts, comments? We may have lost her. So, okay.
One more comment, if that's
Go
all right.
ahead.
So one thing just to bring up too, so Mandan, you know, we went the similar process, and their vote was for an elementary school and a new high school. And the vote was, the survey said we had 3 different options. We kind of had a good, better, best. And the better had the most support, and it was like 67%. And the school board and administration decided to reduce the tax impact a little bit. And they did see like over 70% approval, you know, at that point. So it's not unheard of to go less. So just, you know, while I would say 100%, let's trust the survey. At the end of the day, it's your decision that you have to live with. And that while we don't want to advocate one way or the other, just you guys can do whatever you want.
Go ahead.
Taking that example, did they have about the same time frame? So we're sitting at March 1st. Was that about the same amount of time that they spent with their public, a couple months and then the vote?
Yeah, absolutely. It was actually a little longer, so we did an assessment process, but just specifically for their high school that was having structural failures. And then we communicated that for a few months. So they probably hired us about a year before the vote, which isn't actually that far off from what you guys did. I think we were hired in May, right? So it just seems to be you can't really rush it if you take your time and do it right. It takes about a year, you know, and so we're right there. And the 60 days is, we generally don't recommend going too much longer. You're not going to get more yes people if you go longer.
Go ahead, Jeff, and then Monty, if you have any final thoughts. Go ahead,
And
Jeff.
I was just wondering, we had the survey with those numbers, and is just because people voted on that number or didn't vote, but they said they leaning towards that number, right? does that mean we can't change that number? I mean, 17 million, can we go down to 15 to make that $100 mark like Bill is talking about? So,
Absolutely, yep. And that's exactly what Mandan did, and they were nervous, and they wanted the middle option, and so they went lower.
Monty, any other thoughts for tonight at least?
I agree with everybody. It's been a really good conversation, and I appreciate it very much. And I appreciate everybody asking good questions and asking the hard questions, right? That's important that people in the community know we're taking valuable time to have this really hard and good conversation, because in the end, it makes a huge difference how we proceed with the ballot and how we frame that all out. So I really appreciated what you said earlier, Dave, about listening to what the voters have said to us. And so I have thought about that a lot. Thank you very much for that. I think when it's all said and done, we have to be able to face people in the community and answer to why we voted one way or the other, or why we supported something or didn't support something. So I don't think that is missed by any of us. So I know we're all taking that task very importantly. So thank you.
Josh?
I would just, a couple comments, and I think we have a couple opportunities. I think I'm fully supportive of the Valley, the kitchen, safety and security piece. I think the safety and security number has to be fleshed out. I like the idea of being under the $100 number. I would say that whatever we are above the 13 number, if it's 3 million above, if it's 2 million, whatever it is, we have to have a very clear plan to communicate what that dollar is used for, because I feel like we heard that in the last vote, that, well, what are you doing with this extra? I understand there's absolutely things that could happen that you need it for, but I think that has to be clear. Then I think we have an opportunity too with the safety and security, the roofing piece, that if we can find a way to address that, and maybe it's not at as fast of a pace, but I think we have an opportunity there to gain confidence of the community as voters as a whole, if we can address that with the 10 mills they've offered us over time, and I think 7 million addressed quite a few schools there, so I think even one of those a year is a big win, I think, in my opinion. So I would like to see us try to do that.
Thank you. Bill, you have any other thoughts?
I just think we have to keep in the back of our minds that we need to sell this and get a real good rapport with the public. So 3-4 years down the road, we can
Educate
sell
with.
number two. Educate. I'm either arguing, selling, or reports, or whatever it is. But in 3 or 4 years, when we go for another one, they have confidence that we did spend our money wisely.
Dave? Cynthia?
At the board meeting on Monday, what, you said it would be on the agenda again,
Well, I think this goes to finance now.
right?
And so those of you on finance will get to chew on this a little more. And then I'm assuming that they'll come either with a recommendation or multiple recommendations to the board. But whatever finance presents to the board can change. The board as a whole, we can change. We're the ones that have the final say, so.
I just wanted to make sure that it was on the regular agenda, because like Kyle has pointed out, this is a very late meeting, and I don't know how many people would be listening to us right now, when this was good conversation. So.
Well, and it's always recorded, so they can listen to the education, so. Dr. Brenner. Amber, are you with us?
Joel, I'm here if I can ask maybe one more question.
Go for it.
Okay.
Yes, we got a lot of head shaking up and down, yes. So that's a good idea. So I think, you guys probably have enough information from us tonight to go to finance, which is that later tonight, or is that? It's 11 o'clock. No, when is finance? Thursday? Thursday. And then, for all of you, if you forgot from a few hours ago, we meet next Monday, not 2 weeks from now, next Monday. So, okay. Yeah, any last comments you guys have? If not, thank you for, interfering with your dinner plans, your evening plans, and your sleep plans to come here tonight. We really appreciate it.
9 o'clock is preferred to 6 o'clock.
Yeah. Thank you, appreciate it. Anything else, Dr. Brenner?
I just want to thank Eric Holm, who's our interim director of Buildings and Grounds. He's doing double duty, has been doing double duty for the last several weeks and probably a few more weeks moving forward. So Eric, thanks for being here. Tracy Jentz, our communications coordinator, has sat through our entire evening. Thank you for being here tonight, Tracy. And Mr. Ripley in the control booth. Thank you very much.
So I guess if I don't adjourn, we have to stay, right? We're adjourned.